Hello, lovely friends. Thanks for joining me today. Today's video is a real special one to me, and this is how to design a wreath for a wedding. And while I'm doing this, just take a minute, if you don't mind, and hit that little subscribe button so that you can follow along with me on all our videos here at Mornings with Nana. So let's get into it. This particular wreath is useful for a groom's cottage, or the door going into the groom's dressing area at a wedding. And I want to show you how to design a really gorgeous, professional looking artistic wreath. So first of all, we're going to start with a basic wreath, which I have here. And this has, of course, a lot of blues in it. This is kind of the colors of the wedding I'm designing it for. If you have a wreath and you have particular colors that you want to use, of course, you're going to change the flowers that are on here. This is a gorgeous base of a wreath. You'll see that it is an open grapevine wreath in the back. I am very fond of this type over a wire wreath or a styrofoam wreath. Styrofoam wreaths are nice. They do have their place, but this kind of wreath gives you a lot more flexibility in how you attach the hanging elements of this and how you also put in your flowers in your greenery. So this is my wreath design of preference. And this has some basic flowers on it. Now you could just stop where this is, but this is a particular wedding that I'm really looking forward to attending. So I want to do something extra special to this. Now, as you look at this wreath, you'll notice that it seems to have a natural top and a bottom. This is less decorated up here. This is going to be the top of my wreath. So at this point, I could take a pipe cleaner, which is a very good hanger, and flip it through. See how I can get my finger through that weave? That's why I like these things. These types of twining vines make a lot of gaps so that you can attach a little piece of wire or a pipe cleaner to make a little loop for a hanger. As it is in this particular wedding, I'm going to use a regular over the door hanger for that, so I don't need that, but I want you to know that. Now, sometimes people look at my wreaths and say, oh my gosh, Nana, how in the world did you come up with that design? I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm going to make this much more substantial. I like it to be much larger, a lot more masculine feel for the groom for this wedding. So I'm going to add a lot of things to it. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to use. So I'm going to lay it down here. And when I start designing these things, I kind of think about the groom and what he likes, the feel of the wedding. This is kind of an outdoor garden wedding. And so first of all, I know that the groom likes these antlers. That makes a nice element on here. So you could lay it there and say, how does that look? Do I like the feel of that? Now, the way I design mine, it's going to be different than you. All artists do different work. I do like this on here an awful lot, but I think it's a little bit, perhaps too large. So I'm setting that aside. I have two other antlers. I'm going to show you how you do a layout. You design it. And the main thing I want you to remember is you play around with all the elements that you have to see what looks the best. Now, for instance, could you do that with these smaller antlers? This is a more appropriate size for the size of this wreath than this larger antler, which I really love. But this, to me, does not work. And I'm going to show you why, so that you don't make the mistake of putting things like this on in this layout. Even though these antlers are amazing, we want to use them. don't make the mistake of doing the circle thing. Everything go in a circle. It's been done. Do something more creative for that special occasion. So what I'm going to do is lay them like so. So we have entwining antlers. It's kind of like a marriage thing, see? Kind of entwining. It adds a little bit of flow to your wreath. It adds interest. It keeps everything from being in a circle and being boring. Now, let me show you a trick. If you have a heavier element like these antlers that you're going to attach to a wreath. And this is a temporary thing, but if you do it really well and you like it, leave it on. I'm using some heavy twine. This is heavy garden twine I use for my tomatoes and staking up things out in the garden. There's nothing special about this, but it makes a nice, strong fastener to keep this in place while I design my wreath. And just simply put it on here. We're not going to worry about how it looks. We're putting it in place while we do the layout until we can glue this in and make it a permanent attachment to our wreath. Okay? I'm not even going to cut it off. So it's going to stay on my little wuzzle of twine. All right, so I like that. Now, one thing when you do this, you're covering up the little background eucalyptus leaves that are on this wreath. So you want to make sure you pull those out, you reposition these flowers, all that kind of stuff. But we're not going to worry about that right now. We're just doing the rough layout of this. Now, for this wedding, there are more colors in it. So I have some of these purple blue flowers that are a contrast. See how I lay that on there? It instantly brings up a lot of variation, but they coordinate. So it's not all this light smoky blue. It gives us a little bit of depth and contrast, which makes your whole centerpiece wreath so much more interesting. Now these pieces are of course separate. You can buy them, in just so many stores. I'm not going to give them credit for it. And just say, well, that's not really quite what I want. You can shape these things. This is a wire base, and you could make it go around like this or whatever you want. But what I did, and this is one of these, but I did it before I started the video, is I simply took some wire cutters and I cut it off. Now, it's coated with a pretty good piece of plastic. So when you cut these things, it takes a little bit of hand strength. And if you can't cut it, you get your tech guide. But you go ahead and cut it like this. And what you're doing at this point is actually cutting through the plastic. Okay? And you kind of work that around, get your pliers off, and you made a dent. Okay, well that's really nice. And then you just break the thing off. Go back and forth with it until it snaps off. Tech guy. There it goes. Voila. So there you have it. Now, what you can do with this is to lay it around, work it with your flowers, move it in between. Right now, we're not concerned about the end of this stem sticking out and showing. We're looking for placement. But when it comes time to finish this wreath, and you say, oh, I got the right design I like, then you can put it into the weave of your wreath, because I have an open twig weave, and it just slides right in there. Actually, that's in there pretty good, and I think it would stay for the length of moving it around from a car to a wedding or any place you need to travel or store this thing. But for permanence, I would put a dab of hot glue in there from either side where it comes through, and then it will hold forever and ever and ever. But what we're doing now is just kind of laying this out, filling this in, trying to add a little depth, a little bit more gorgeousness to this. And I like that in there. Put these things up. You don't want bare stems showing. Not if you have bare stems showing on your wreath, don't tell anybody I told you how to do this, because it'll make me look bad. So put those flowers or some of these background leaves over that stem. Nothing plastic shows on your wreath. Never, 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 never. All right, so you got that idea, and I've got our little antlers here. Now, here's a trick I want you to know. I still have a basic circular look, and I want that because everybody has a circle wreath, and I don't know why that is. But your wreath is different, and it's unique. And so what I'm going to do, since it's going to be hanging on a door at the wedding, is change this overall shape. I'm saying, well, Nat, how in the world are you going to do that? Well, it's really a lot more simple than you think. First of all, since I want a masculine feel to this wreath and not all the dainty little flowers that I would put for the bride, I'm going to use a larger leaf greenery, and this is a large leaf ivy and some broad leaf ferns. And I'm changing the shape of it by attaching these at the bottom of the wreath so it moves the eye downward and it elongates this circle, so you can't now tell, hey, is that an oval? Is that a circle? What is this? It just looks like one long continuation of a very professionally put together wreath. So we have something like this. Now there's a bit of a gap here. We never have gaps in a wreath, ever. Everything goes together. Now there's a couple ways of handling this. If you can see, hey, tech guy, can you see this gap here? Can you check? I could put my hand right here. Do you see the gap? Okay. Now, if you wanted to, you could treat this gap right here with putting a bow that might flow down with trailing ribbons. But what I'm gonna do, since I'm looking for an over the top, for a wedding over the top, more is better, I'm going to put this in here and see what this might look like. This is a larger flower. It's not particularly feminine. It's a more rustic looking thing for a wedding, which is perfect. But it's a more masculine look, and you can change the shape and position of these leaves. So go ahead, and I'm just going to lay that in there. See how that fills in that gap? Now, I particularly like this color flower with this, because if you'll notice, I'm repeating some of the highlights in the antlers, and I'm carrying those colors here into this flower. And I'm drawing your eye down this way. And I've slid the broadleaf ferns in here. These are not dainty little wisteria ferns or anything like that. And I've got my broadleaf ivy down here, bringing all of this down together. Now, am I done? Well, you could be. You've got a really good look going here. But I like more is better for a wedding. Here's a nice white. Let's see how that looks in here. Does this look good? Do we like that? Or does it compete with this? Look, I'm going to put this in a couple of different places to see what you think. Now, if you take a larger element like this and set it up where the circle starts to come down, you know, you can turn this into a more oval shape. But you don't want to compete this element with this, because this is going to be kind of a complementary focal point to these antlers here and bring the eye here. So let's just leave that there for a minute, work with it. Let's add some more things in here. Do we like that? It's bringing the eye down because I have no white or cream flowers up here. They're right here at the bottom. Now in this particular wedding, there's a yellow gold that is in the wedding flower. So I might put this here as a little piece of my accent thing. Ooh, I like this here. Okay, so as you're looking at this, I just want to give you a reminder that I'm asking you, please help me reach my goal. And for the first 50 subscribers, and also that comment on this project, I'm going to write you back myself, and we'll have a little chat on my page. But make sure you subscribe so that we can become friends that way. Okay, I'm going to put that right there. Do you see how I have this beautiful yellow? Just for a little fun, let me take it out so that you can see some other things. What if I put that up here? Do you like that? I only have the one flower. I do like it in a way because it complements the tones, the warm tones in these antlers. But since it's the only one, it almost looks like, Nana, what were you thinking? So let's continue with keeping it down here. And that's why when you're designing a wreath, never start gluing things on when you get it. Everybody I know that makes these things does that. Big mistake. They get a whole bunch of elements and they go, oh, well, that goes there, that goes there. And they follow the shape of the wreath when they end up something that looks like it came from Target. No, you don't do that. Let's take a look and move things around. Do I like this flower here? Well, maybe I do, maybe I don't. Maybe it should come over here. Play with this thing. I know this flower I want to keep because it's very pretty, but this one I think is too big in that spot. So I'm going to remove that. I don't want it to be heavy because it's for a wedding, but I do want it to have enough masculinity to this thing so we know that this is for the groom and not the bride. You ought to see hers. Now, I have some more of these flowers here. This is a deeper tone. Here's one that's off, and you could place those in here as well. I kind of like that look. It kind of fills this in here a little bit. And you have a choice, depending on how you're doing this, if you want to remove the flower from these stems. These just pop off. There's nothing magical about them. And they say, oh, man, I've got all this plastic stem showing. No, you don't. Look, all of this moves. So you can get those flowers together with the leaves and make it look good. Now, if you could put the whole back of this in underneath here, let me lift it up to show you what that might look like. That whole wad of them. See how big that comes? And then you can work your other flowers in around that, keeping this as your focal point because you liked this, because it complements this. Always make things go together. Or you can just say, hey, that's just too much. I just maybe wanted a few of those things. And you can just remove it and take and cut part of it off and use that wherever you like, just a few of them at a time. So I'm going to show you one of the most amazing things that I like about this particular one is, since it's for a wedding, I was thinking of, okay, how am I going to make this really special? I know that the groomsmen are wearing brocade vests, so I have a more brocade green ribbon that kind of goes with the green of the groomsmen. So it all kind of ties together, and I'm going to place this, not in a bow, but in a V point, like so, up here at the top of my wreath. And I don't want it to go all around my wreath because it's going to hide too much of my wreath. And I want the flowers and the wood background to speak for itself. But that's going to go up here. And I thought, well, geez, how can I make that more interesting? Well, I have a piece of family jewelry that I thought I would pin right there to tie this in on this wreath for the groom, because this is a special piece of jewelry. So have fun with doing all of this. Take into consideration the colors of the wedding. Make sure that you have something that is special to the groom, like antlers or a piece of family jewelry. Don't be locked into the shape of your wreath when you get it. This is the foundation. I always think of it as just a suggestion. If you want a bigger, more dramatic wreath, go for it. Add a lot of elements at the top or at the bottom, which is where I want it to go, so it's more of an oval hanging over the back of the door. And I would like to see what you end up making. So put your comments at the bottom and write me, tell me all about what you're making. And remember to like and subscribe and stay tuned and see what I made for the bride. Thanks, lovely friends. See you soon.